Hi, this is Mickey, and I'm Dan. Welcome back to the workshop. You know what time of year it is. It's time for State of the Workshop 2026. This is the wrong jumper, but we're going to crack on anyway. I've been doing these for a few years now, quite a few years. I stacked them all up. And this is just a time for me to kind of meander around the workshop, look at what's changed since last year, talk about the projects I've done this year, and any thoughts I have for the upcoming year. And hopefully one or two people might find that interesting. So, without further ado, we're going to start, I think, with the CNC machine. That's as tradition. So, let's come over and have a look at that. So, I have used the CNC machine a fair amount this year, not hugely. Quite a lot recently. I've been making a sign for a part of my sister's wedding that's coming up this year. And so, in order to do that, I was carving plywood, text into plywood, and it became quite important that where plywood and indeed the bed of my lathe of my router isn't necessarily completely flat, I wanted to be able to finally get around to upgrading things to be able to handle that. So, we come and have a look in a bit more detail. I set up, I got this guy, which is essentially a tool length probe. It's like an analog probe. It just pushes in. It's got a whole bunch, like it's quite large for what it is, but it creates, I guess, a reliable push down trigger when you touch a tool to this surface. So this guy is connected to my Duet 3D brain, and next to it, I don't know how easy that is to see on camera, is just a super glued chunk of aluminium. So this is just a fixed reference hard point, and I got one of these guys, which is like a little XYZ probe that goes in your spindle. So you can touch this off on the hard point, and then it knows where the tip is of this related to where this triggers. That's just a weird thing. I did a whole video about this, but basically this setup means that I can probe the corner of a piece of material, but I can also do a mesh probe, basically like a 3D printer when it does like mesh leveling of its bed surface. You can use the same technology to probe all over a piece of stock, find out the height map, and adjust the height map to suit. And so that is what you can see on the control screen over there, is just the height map data that I last used, and that just means you can carve things nicely. So that worked pretty well, and that has been a nice little upgrade to the CNC machine that has been somewhat overdue, I think. Hopefully I'll get to use that a bunch more over the next year. So that's the CNC machine. This corner never really changes very much. The laser, I've used the laser a few times. I'm a little bit worried that the tube in it is starting to fail. It doesn't feel like it cuts quite as well as it used to, but it's still very useful when you need it. But this whole corner is still kind of a mess. However, we have rejuggled some things around. Let's see if we can get you into a position where you will be able to see that. All right, so I don't know how easy it's going to be to tell, but basically this is a trolley that used to be kind of over in this direction. It's got my metal guillotine on it and my arbor press, and it stores all the clamp racks, and it's got some storage underneath. So I've sort of tucked this around here. Last year I had a bunch of like wood stock here from a floor disaster. That's all tucked away kind of neatly now, those bits of it that I haven't used. So I've got a slightly narrower section here, but I think I still have access to the things I need, and that freed up some space, which meant that this could shift over, which is my other mobile trolley. So that's going okay. Let's come further around, because this has now changed. All right, so this is my Walker lathe. I previously had it in the middle of the room next to the mill. I used to have a wood lathe here. The wood lathe is kind of mothballed for the moment, is probably the best way to put it. It's over here, and we'll get to it in a second, but it's not really in a usable state. But I don't really use the wood lathe very much, whereas I do use the metal lathe a lot. Enough that, in fact, I have an upgrade coming. So this is the WM180 Walker lathe. I was been very happy with it, but it is the baby end of lathes. And I put the ELS on it, which I've been very happy with, and I'm sure I'll continue to develop. But I had an opportunity to spend some money. Having worked with my company for 15 years, I got a gift, which is nice. I chose to put that towards a bigger lathe, which will be coming this year, and there will be a video about it. I actually ordered it directly from a factory in China, so I'm sort of fingers crossed that that's all going well, but they've sent me pictures of it and videos of it, and hopefully it's heading its way to a container ship. That might be February, maybe even March before that arrives. But part of knowing that was coming, I wanted to make sure I could put it somewhere. So in theory, that lathe will end up here, which there is enough space for it here. That does mean that this lathe has to go somewhere else. And I did think, I might sell it still, but because I refactored everything, I actually found that I kind of do have room. I could put it somewhere else in this workshop, and then I would just have 2 lathes, because who doesn't need 2 lathes? Right, let's proceed around. Table saw is still kind of where the table saw was. And I guess what used to be down here blocking the wood lathe was a trolley with my sander and chop saw and such. And I think I said last year, I do use it. It was in an awkward place. It's on wheels, but I kind of didn't always move it. That's now in the core here. In fact, let's just... So that trolley is now here in the middle. It's got the shop vac on it, so it means the shop vac is central to the workshop, and along with the cyclone thing right here, they are a little bit easier to move around from this position, along with my mobile little workbench. So I've got like this collection of little things on wheels that are a little bit easier to move, that kind of take up the center, but I can move them off to one side when I need to. And also, because it's in the center, I get much easier access to this chop saw and the belt sander and the spindle sander. So that is a better place for it. So with that out of the way, the table saw is still on wheels here, but what used to be back over here was the dust extractor, which you can kind of see all the way back here. So I decided that this was a better place for the dust extractor to sort of tuck in out of the way. It's useful when you need it. Like, I want to be able to use it, but it just took up too much space in what felt like otherwise usable space where it was. I put it there because it was next to the bandsaw, but actually the bandsaw dust port is on this side anyway. I put it in the corner, out of the way. I have it wired up. I've made a short video about this recently. When you turn on the bandsaw, the smart plug detects the increase in current, and there's an automation on Home Assistant that then turns on the dust collector. It's very noisy and it takes a few seconds to calm down again, so I'm not going to do that. But that's the idea. Hopefully it's out of the way, but more useful because it is actually tied to when I switch the bandsaw on. And all of that means that I do have this gap behind the table saw. So it's not very easy to see behind the table saw, but basically I have a couple of brackets attached to the wall here that are just welded steel brackets that were holding the dust collector up. I have a bit of random thin ply on it at the moment, but the theory is I will be able to turn this into a fixed workbench against the wall, and that is where the old lathe will go to. And then I'll have the lathes kind of next to each other. One will be blocked by the table saw when it's not in use, but the table saw is on wheels, so I can move it out of the way. That also means that currently, if I come around a bit further, I have what I'm considering a temporary work surface here. I hacked this together. My dad came a couple of weeks ago and we worked on a CNC project for my sister's wedding. And it was useful to have a surface. This is where the lathe used to be. I mean, nothing is as permanent as a temporary solution, as they say. I may or may not keep a surface here, or I might try to remove it to buy myself more space. One thing I could do is get rid of this, move the table saw here permanently, so I have this like island of tools on wheels in the center, and I kind of use the table saw as a table most of the time anyway. and that will open up over there. We'll see. I might experiment in the new year, but for now I have this temporary surface. It's just all the random bits of scrap stuck together with the legs that used to support the old wood lathe. It gets the job done. It gets the job done. Sorry about the slightly odd angle. We'll get on to the robot cameraman status in a second. I've had the rotary table for a while, and this year I was given the chuck mount for it. I'm hoping this opens up a bunch of convenient options on the mill. The rotary table is awesome, but like if you've been working on the lathe, you often have something that's cylindrical, and if you want to do like non-cylindrical features on that, then being able to do it in the chuck is useful. I have a lot of experimenting to do, I think, to get used to how to use it the best, but that this setup remains good for me. So that's that. Let's bring you back to... So yeah, this back corner drill press is still fine. It's useful when you need it. It's too big, really. It continues to be too big, but I've got it, so whatever. The old wood lathe is currently at the back here behind the chop saw. I'm probably going to try and get rid of this chop saw this year. Now that the other one is in a more convenient to use location, the fence on this one broke a while ago, so I always have to jerry rig something. It can be useful, but I don't really need two chop saws, and it is in the way. I think without this, I could potentially bring the wood lathe forwards or have something that allows me to move it forwards and backwards. That is a thought in process. Bandsaw remains in its trusty location. This shiny red thing that you may have spotted, let me just lift that up, is a hefty hoist, which is new. And I have some steel on the floor over there because the new lathe I mentioned earlier is going to be about 250 kilos, and obviously they will not deliver it into my workshop. They will deliver it to the driveway, and I need some way to move it. So my theory at the moment is to make a steel structure with a beam that the hoist sits on, with probably some high load wheels on it that I can use to maneuver things. And the basic idea is that the existing lathe workbench, and indeed the workbench the mill is on, are both on wheels, so they can be maneuvered into position. If I create a structure wide enough to go around their narrow end, if that makes sense, kind of that could essentially roll over across it, then in my mind I will be able to lift the lathe off of the pallet, just off the ground, slowly wheel it, inch it into position, maneuver the workbench, then get them lined up, lift the lathe to the full height, wheel it straight over on top of the workbench, rest it down. Easy peasy. In my mind, easy peasy. In practice, we'll see. That's another project that's coming up. We'll be building that frame ready for when the lathe arrives. So that's this side. Let's go look at the other side. And this is the side of the workshop which is welding and whatnot. This has not changed a huge amount. A plasma cutter is still relegated here at the moment, along with the massive metal store of mess. Like, this is where I keep all of the random offcuts and sheet stocks and whatever that I think is too useful to throw away, which is way too much stuff, of course. Trusty welding table, still in its regular place. I occasionally think that what would be nice is to do one of those like fancy drilled hole patterns that gives you a perfectly square set of mounting points. Like, I'm jealous of those fixture tables. I definitely don't have room for them, and they're very expensive. This has been very good for me, but sometimes it does feel like it would be nicer to be able to set up those like 90-degree fixtures in slightly better ways, but it is what it is. TIG welder used to be at this end, is now at this end. The steel that I bought that I'm going to make the crane thing hoist out of, I actually long term want to use to make the thing I think I've been talking about for freaking years, which is a trolley for the TIG welder, the MIG welder, the plasma cutter, and the gas. So that's all together on one thing. So I kind of bought it thinking I would do that with it afterwards, because I don't really need the hoist permanently, I think, probably. That's my thinking anyway. So this is sort of shifted around a little bit. I think it does make sense to have the TIG welder and both gases together. I don't really know why I put it at the other end originally. The other thing at this end, which is on the list of to-dos, is this guy. This is my kind of general dust filter thing. I don't, again, like with the other dust extractor, I don't really run it enough because I don't remember to switch it on. Doesn't work reliably. Like, it's got one of these membrane keyboard things on it, and it almost always doesn't really work. Occasionally I can like unplug it and faff around with things to make it work again. I don't really know what's wrong with it. I'm going to take it apart and put essentially a remote switch in it instead of its controller, with the view that hopefully A, I will make it work, and B, much like the dust extractor on the other side, I can have certain things like running the CNC machine and such trigger an automation that always turns it on so I don't forget, so that it's running, or maybe when I'm using the welders and such. So that is the plan. And I think that is kind of everything. Let's that on. So there you go. That is the state of the workshop. The one thing we haven't covered is, of course, the robot cameraman, which you've been using to follow me around the workshop all of this time. Is it working perfectly? Absolutely not. I keep having issues. The thing that's plagued me today is that one of the joints likes to crash, the camera tilt joint, and so it loses its position, which is sort of infuriating. I don't really know why that's happening, but I will try and fix it. I guess unlike last year I thought I was close. It was funny, I rewatched this video from last year, the State of the Workshop 2025, and I said the words that I thought I was nearly done with the robot cameraman, and I could tell from looking at it that I was nowhere near done. Let me just bring this camera in so we can have a bit of a view of the cameraman. So this is obviously the robot camera in all its glory. Since last year, I think I completely replaced the main
new big
lift
motor,
arm
new
motor and gearbox,
new big motor,
and
new gearbox,
elbow arm motor
all
and
of these
gearbox,
controllers
and
are
all of the
different
electronics. This time last year, I was still trying to make a CAN bus thing work, and I found that super unreliable. And it was very hard to debug when it went wrong, like things would drop off the CAN bus and I couldn't tell why. Obviously, I have not completely solved that problem with my current setup because I still have that issue with one joint, but everything else has broadly been okay. I've been able to move it around a bunch, set up all these different positions, and kind of control what I want to control. So it's in a much better place than it was. Let's try this. Oh, there you go. Oh, you see, you can tell what I'm getting is spurious readings. So I can use the left hand twist to try and go up and down, and it does the combination. Whoa! But the calculations can get out of hand, and it can juggle around. It tries to do the combination of the just moving vertically up and down, and so that's still right. If I try, so in theory, it's trying to give me a linear move and maintain, which it's sort of doing, right? Like I'm sorry, very jittery. If I save this position though, and I come back the other way, whoa. Ooh, it's trying its best. It's trying its best. So now if I save this position, I should be able to move between the two positions. And what you can kind of see when it does it this way is that the camera goes all off axis, because this is just me doing a straight interpolate between those two positions. It will continue to be a work in progress, but it kind of dominated this year. I didn't do a lot of other projects. And so probably took up more of the year than I intended. I've been very bad about putting videos out on YouTube. I don't know that's going to change, but we'll see. So there you go. That's kind of what I've been working on. Did this year make a coffee table, which I think I talked about last year, is something I've wanted to do for a long time. I got distracted in the middle of the year because I had to completely renovate our utility room, and as part of that, got a new piece of worktop, and I made a coffee table. There's a video about the coffee table. So I did like a proper woodworking project and everything. And what else was there this year? I should have looked up what I did. So much of this year. Personally, 2025 was kind of a rough year. I've had problems with my leg and my hip, which have stopped me from running. So I've been putting on weight, which I'm sure shows up on video, or at least to me, I can tell these year to year which years have been good for my health and which are less so. I'm hoping that physio is going to sort that out this year. And yeah, we had a lot of stuff going on that kind of distracted behind the scenes. And I say, I spent a lot of time trying to make this damn robot work properly, and it's, I laughed at myself last year when I said it was close, and I constantly feel like it's close. This has been an interesting exercise, using it properly in anger again to make this film, and seeing the things that don't work, but so much of it does work. It's great. So there'll probably be more robot cameraman content. And I say, there's going to be me making a winch, there's going to be making a winch holder, there's going to be me getting a new lathe and unboxing it and talking about that. I really want, this is a 3D printed cycloidal gearbox, and I kind of want to try and make a metal one. It feels like hubris. I don't think I'm a good enough machinist probably to pull it off, but I think that might have to happen at some point this year. It would be nice to put it on the robot. I feel like there are some places where a cycloidal gearbox would be an improvement. We'll see. Watch this space. Anyway, that's it. Hopefully someone maybe was interested in that. Let me know what you've been working on. Let me know what your project's plans are for 2026. And thank you for watching. See you next time.